You can do better than... Huh? Oh, I love it when they play hard to get.
Yes, Queen! Before I get started, I'd like to kindly ask that you hit the like button, and please subscribe to the channel for more content just like this.
All I'm offering is the truth, nothing more.
If you are a child of the 90s, then you probably hold the X-Men animated series in pretty high regard. That show, along with the Batman and Spider-Man animated series, are a big reason why I'm such a fan of these characters to this day. I did have some comics growing up, but it was these shows that pushed me into wanting to dig into the source material a bit deeper.
No shit.
It fueled my curiosity and made me want to learn more about these characters that I'd grown to love. And there was this thing about 90s cartoons that appealed to both kids and adults alike. A kid could watch it and take it for what it is, and just a fun comic book story. But an adult could watch it, and if they wanted to dig a little bit deeper, could gain something a bit more from it. Here's what the shills do not realize when we say we don't like heavy-handed messages in our entertainment. It's never about the message itself, it's about how that message is delivered.
Message!
So for anyone who's going to respond and say, well, the X-Men were written as a metaphor for the civil rights movement. Yeah, no shit. But here's the thing, a metaphor is supposed to be symbolic and almost abstract. When your message is overt, however, that metaphor loses all meaning. If a writer or director comes out before a movie is released and says that their story is about racism, or mental health, or diversity, or whatever hot button issue they want to cover, then you are not leaving your story up to audience interpretation, and that makes the final product instantly less intelligent. When it comes right down to it, there is a monster gap between the writers that wrote the X-Men in the 1960s compared to whoever is writing these stories now. Hell, there's a huge gap between the 90s writers and whoever is writing these stories now. The difference is that modern writers did not experience these hardships that the X-Men are based on, so they can't possibly understand how to properly work those messages into their stories.
That makes sense.
Instead, they invent modern problems and then plug those in because they don't have an ounce of creativity in their body. So for those that don't know, the X-Men animated series from the 90s is getting a revival on Disney Plus entitled X-Men 97. The fact alone that this is on Disney Plus should be cause for concern considering they have yet to produce anything that is worthwhile.
That's right, it stinks!
The show's head writer, Bo DeMeo, spoke recently about the direction of the show, and he expressed his desire to not change the earnestness or sincerity of the original characters. Now, I do agree with that notion, but if there's one thing we've learned over the past few years, it's this. Modern writers are typically incapable of reintroducing established characters and keeping them consistent. They always have that desire to change something, just in an effort to subvert expectations and throw the audience off. So I don't have a lot of faith in his efforts, and the track record of previous Disney properties speaks volumes here. Moving on, when asked how his show would improve upon or differ from the original series, he said this: I think what I would say is that the generation who grew up watching that show, we have grown up, and the world is a very different place than when that show was first made. And so, it is more of a question of, what does that show look like knowing what we know now?
I don't care!
Let me stop you right there, Bo, because this is something that needs to be said. I don't give a flying fuck what the world looks like today, and that should have no bearing on a show that is literally titled X-Men 97. This is how inconsistencies in stories start to occur. Because people sign on to revive old properties that are quite literally set in the 90s, it's in the name, and they're going to try to apply 2022 ideologies to it.
Why do these things always happen to me?
And I think I speak for a lot of people when I say I have no interest in that. If you're going to do that, then you might as well just make a new show. Because it will now cease to be the 90s cartoon that you claim to love so much. Why do people consistently make the mistake of thinking that we need modern problems injected into a retro franchise? And that's somehow going to make the franchise relevant again. The reality is that those franchises have always been relevant because of the way they were originally written.
Man, I'm tired of being right.
You once again are showing us you do not understand why people like this show to begin with. And now that you've explicitly said this is what this show is about, people are going to go into it looking for this shit. You essentially screwed yourself, so maybe the better option would have been to shut the fuck up and just tell a good story. He went on to say, and how it looks like in today's world, with everything that has changed and everything that hasn't changed, sadly, in our world. Why? We all know exactly where this is going, and if you say you don't, you are either in denial or completely out of your fucking mind. The writing is on the wall and quite literally spewing from this guy's mouth. There is a high probability that this is going to be heavy-handed modern bullshit. Remember in the original X-Men movie from 2000 when the fact that Magneto survived the Holocaust played into his feelings about new mutant legislation? And there was one line Ian McKellen stated brilliantly that brought the whole idea home when he talked about having a number burned into your forehead. It felt organic, it felt natural, and it felt like it was relevant to the story they were trying to tell. If X-Men 2000 was made in 2022, it would probably sound something like this.
I was oppressed by privileged white men as a Jew, but I will not be oppressed by privileged white men as a mutant.
Do you see the difference? And you know I'm right because that's all I do here is tell the truth, unlike most people on this fucking platform. So expect some of this overt shit to end up in X-Men 97, because most writers today are incapable of doing anything else. And I'm sure it's going to be even worse when the X-Men are inevitably introduced into the MCU as well.
Go fuck yourself, pretty boy.
So let me know what you thought about all this in the comments down below. As always, please like, comment, share, subscribe to the channel. Hit that bell for notifications, and I'll see you next time right here on Real Shift. Thanks for watching. Peace out.
Y'all be cool. Right on.